In a quiet village nestled between rolling green hills and wide golden fields, there lived an old woman whom everyone seemed to know. Her house stood at the edge of a narrow path lined with wildflowers, and a small wooden bench rested beneath her window. She was not rich, nor did she possess anything grand or remarkable. Yet if you asked anyone in the village who carried the warmest heart, they would all speak her name with gentle respect. No matter the season, no matter the weather, she remained the same. On bright mornings when the sun painted the sky in soft colors, she would sit outside and greet passers-by with a peaceful smile. On stormy afternoons, when rain tapped against rooftops and the wind howled through the trees, she would light a small oil lamp by her window and hum softly to herself. There was something steady about her presence, like a quiet harbor where weary boats could rest. People often came to her carrying invisible burdens. A farmer worried about his failing crops, a mother anxious about her child's illness, a young man uncertain about his future. The old woman would listen without interruption. She rarely offered long speeches or complicated advice. Sometimes she simply poured tea, nodded gently, and spoke a few calm words. Yet somehow, those simple words felt like sunlight breaking through heavy clouds. One afternoon, as the sky turned pale gold, a young woman approached the old woman's home. Her steps were slow, and her eyes were swollen as if she had spent the night in tears. She hesitated before knocking, then quietly entered when she heard the familiar voice invite her in. The old woman looked up from her chair and smiled warmly. "Come in, my child," she said, pouring a cup of tea as if she had been expecting her. The young woman sat down, her hands trembling slightly as she held the warm cup. For a moment, she said nothing. Then the question poured out of her heart. "Grandmother, how are you always so peaceful? No matter what happens in this village, illness, loss, hardship, you never seem angry or broken. Don't you ever feel sad when life goes wrong?" The old woman's smile did not fade. Instead, she turned her gaze toward a small oil lamp resting on the wooden table beside her. Its flame flickered gently, swaying with the breeze that slipped through the window. "My dear," she said softly, "happiness does not come from what happens around us. It comes from what we choose to carry inside." The young woman frowned slightly. "But when terrible things happen," she asked, "how can anyone stay happy? Isn't sadness natural?" The old woman nodded. "Yes," she replied. "Sadness is natural. Let me tell you a story." She leaned back in her chair, her eyes drifting into memories of years long past. "When I was young," she began, "I had a husband and 3 small children. We were very poor. Our house was small, with a roof that sometimes leaked when it rained. We could not afford fine clothes or rich meals, but our home was full of laughter. In the evenings, we would sit close together, telling stories by the light of a lamp, just like this one." Her face softened as she continued. "Then one winter, my husband fell ill. At first, we thought it was nothing serious, but his strength faded day by day. We tried every remedy we could afford. I sold what little jewelry I owned. I borrowed money from neighbors, but we did not have enough for proper treatment. The room grew quiet except for the faint crackle of the lamp. One night," she said gently, "he held my hand and smiled at me the way he always did. By morning, he was gone." The young woman felt her throat tighten. "I thought my heart would shatter," the old woman admitted. "For days, I cried until my eyes burned. I felt as if the light in my life had been blown out completely. I could not imagine a future without him." She paused, allowing the weight of those memories to settle. "But one morning," she continued, "I heard my youngest child crying. She was hungry. My older children were frightened. They looked at me, waiting for me to tell them that everything would be all right." The old woman's voice grew steadier. "In that moment, I realized something important. My tears would not bring my husband back. My sorrow would not feed my children. They needed my strength more than they needed my sadness. So I wiped my face," she said quietly. "And I decided that although I could not control what life had taken from me, I could control what I gave to my children." The young woman listened intently. "Life," the old woman continued, "will always give us both sunshine and storms. We cannot stop the wind from blowing or the rain from falling, but we can decide whether to sit in darkness or to light a lamp." She gently touched the small oil lamp beside her. "Every morning since that day I light this flame," she said, "and I whisper to myself, 'This is a new day. I will find one reason to smile. The young woman looked puzzled. Only one reason, the old woman smiled. Sometimes one is enough. She went on. Some days the reason is simple. The warmth of sunlight on my hands, the sound of birds singing outside my window, a neighbor greeting me kindly. On difficult days, the reason may be as small as the fact that I am still breathing. The young woman lowered her eyes. But what if something truly terrible happens again? She asked. What if the pain is too heavy? The old woman's expression became thoughtful. When pain comes, she said softly, we must allow ourselves to feel it. Pretending to be strong does not heal the heart. I still cried after my husband died. I still miss him. But I remind myself that nothing in this world lasts forever. Not joy, not sorrow. She leaned forward slightly. When something painful happens, I ask myself, what do I still have? I still have memories. I still have people who care about me. I still have the gift of waking up each morning. As long as there is something left, there is something to be grateful for. The young woman turned her gaze toward the lamp's flame. It flickered as the wind passed through the open window, bending but never disappearing. Happiness, the old woman said gently, is not the absence of pain. It is the decision to focus on light, even when darkness surrounds us. Silence filled the room for a while. The young woman felt something shift inside her chest, a quiet understanding she had not known before. Thank you, she whispered finally. I think I understand. That evening, she returned to her own home. The house felt just as heavy as it had that morning. Her problems had not vanished. The world outside remained the same. But she noticed a small oil lamp resting on a shelf in the corner of her room, covered in dust. Slowly, she cleaned it and lit the wick. The tiny flame glowed softly, casting gentle shadows on the walls. This is a new day, she murmured, repeating the old woman's words. I will find one reason to smile. At first, it felt almost foolish. Her heart was still burdened. Yet the next morning, she noticed the cool breeze drifting through her window. It felt refreshing against her skin. That became her first reason. The following day, she heard children laughing as they ran past her house. The sound made her lips curve slightly. That became her second reason. Another morning, she smelled fresh bread baking in a neighbor's oven. The warm scent filled the air. That became her third reason. Day by day, the reasons grew. They were never grand or dramatic, but they were real. Whenever sorrow tried to pull her back into darkness, she remembered the old woman's voice. We cannot stop the storms, but we can choose how to face them. Gradually, the heaviness in her chest began to lift. She still experienced difficult days. She still faced challenges. But there was a new steadiness inside her, like a quiet flame that would not go out. In time, others in the village began to notice the change. They saw how she carried herself with calm confidence. They observed how she listened patiently when others spoke of their troubles. One afternoon, a neighbor approached her and asked, How do you stay so peaceful? The young woman smiled, remembering the warm room and the gentle voice that had once guided her. Happiness, she replied softly, does not come from the world around us. It begins within our hearts. And so, like a candle lighting another candle, the quiet lesson continued to spread. One small flame became two, then three, then many more.